Hey there, and welcome back. Last week, I told you how I visited some strip clubs and touched on why people need to feel sexy. And this week, I wanted to expand more on that by going deeper into what often happens when we don't feel sexy and the skills feeling sexy helps us with, and why self esteem is really that important. Growing up, I didn't really pay much attention to feeling sexy or not feeling sexy. It just wasn't something that took any time from me. Like for special dances at schools, like semi-formals, where we would all have to get dressed up, more often than not, I would just be combing my hair at the last possible second and then driving whoever I was going with to the dinner. Looks didn't come into play until I was about 18 or 19 years old. I started hanging out with more girls and we would be getting up to more girly things. And even that, it was about 50-50. I was very much one of those people that only had two looks. I had the I'm all done up like a Barbie doll, or you just found me dumpster diving behind Avondale. Like, really, there was no in between. But regardless, my new friendships with more girly girls showed me another part of my femininity, which I'm very happy about. And really, I enjoyed the whole process of girls getting together and getting their hair done and their makeup done before going out. I was very much part of that whole like kissy phase, stuck phase, whatever you want to call it. I loved it. And although living for the weekends has died down for me, dressing sexy is something I still do right now. Because I love looking at myself in the mirror and saying, damn, what a hot looking person. And I think more people need to do that. I think the idea that if you think you're sexy, that you're also vain is so toxic. And of course, there is a thing called vanity. But feeling sexy doesn't mean that it's an obsessive thing that occupies every moment of your life. Feeling sexy is a healthy feeling that we should all have. The problem is, it doesn't take much time to not feel sexy. Most of us are tired all the time. We feel exhausted. It shows up on our face. And with these constant messages of what sexy is and isn't, we often find ourselves left out of the box of what sexy is. And again, feeling sexy and how we feel about ourselves is connected to self-esteem. And I know at the moments that I felt least sexiest is when my self-esteem was also at my lowest. But our self-esteem issues and how we feel about ourselves sexy-wise don't start in adulthood. Self-esteem issues are often found in our childhood, which we bring into our adult years. I consider myself lucky because for the first 8 years of my life, I had a stepdad that pushed me into things like dancing and piano, or at least we were in a financial situation where I was able to do those things. And those forms of expression built a very strong, solid foundation for my self-esteem, because I remember after doing those shows and the cheers and the lights and the flowers and the costumes, all of it, and I feel that it was very encouraging as a child. However, around 11 or 12, that's when my self-esteem started to take a bit of a beating. Around this time, I was with my now second stepdad, and making friends in the city was a lot harder. I remember one of my birthdays I had there, no one showed up. Not a single person. Like, I had invited girls from the class, which made me feel like I couldn't have friends. Maybe I wasn't worthy of friends. There was something wrong with me. But luckily, by the time high school came around, I had transferred so many times that I had built the skill to just be able to talk to a number of different types of people. So that actually helped more in high school. But even in high school, and about feeling sexy, like, it wasn't something I was encouraged to do. I wasn't really in those friend groups or those type of social circles. In fact, my aunt on my dad's side would actually make fun of Cosmopolitan magazine. And she was a really huge influence on the type of sex advice that I do take. But feeling good about myself was a struggle on my mom's side a little bit, yeah. My grandmother was often very criticizing of how everyone looked in the family. I think she had a comment for every one of us. But one time I purposely did my hairstyle with a wet look. And so it was a choice that I had made. And my grandmother really just tore me apart over it. And although I just knew it was like her opinion and stuff, those words take moments to shake off. Like, it's when someone goes after you for something you've chosen to do to yourself and they just totally destroy it or make you feel bad for it, it's natural to hang on to that energy a little bit. It's hard to shake it sometimes quickly. And although that's just a small example, like just your hair or your clothes or your shoes or whatever the case may be, that piles up. And when you're trying to make yourself look good and someone takes the rug underneath from you, it's painful. And moving into my 20s is when my weight started to fluctuate. It varied a lot. At my heaviest, I was around 170. And during 2020, I did a drastic life change. And long story short, I got down to 125, and I've incorporated exercising and yoga, and I just started a really good health journey. And during this time, I cannot tell you the amount of sexy pictures I take of myself. I used to take pictures of myself, but like, I'm proud of my body, and honestly, like, I really look at myself and I go, damn. And I even print them out with my age and date, and I put them in a book because I know that when I'm old and on my deathbed, I'm going to look at my sexy pictures and I'm going to feel so good. Like, I know there's the age-old question of, like, the threat of nude pictures being leaked, or, of course, concern. And obviously, like, you know, I trust the people I send them to, and, you know, I hope that they don't send them out, and I hope I don't get leaked. But honestly, I take pictures of myself that no one has ever seen. Like, I have photos that are just meant for me, because taking nude photos of myself genuinely makes me feel good about myself. And sometimes if I do feel sad and there is something about my body that's just kind of, you know, pissing me off, I'll look at those photos and I remind myself of the sexy goddess that I am, and that each of us are a little sexy god or goddess, and we all have this sexual self inside of us. And again, if you haven't met your little sexy self, then it's time to sit down in front of a mirror and get to know yourself. And to be frank, there's always going to be things that you aren't the biggest fan of. But learning to live in the bodies that we're in and to feel good about the bodies that we're in is a component to a happier, healthier life. And we need to be kind to ourselves. We're not going to feel sexy if we constantly tell ourselves if we're ugly. If every time we look by a mirror, we shudder to ourselves. Like, no, like, that's just not how it's built. And how we talk to ourselves is a big part of how we view ourselves. So if we don't call yourself sexy, there's a high chance that you don't believe you're sexy. So you need to incorporate this inner dialogue that tells yourself you're sexy. It's okay to feel sexy, and you need to build that into your routine, because feeling sexy makes us feel confident. But it's also an experience, I believe, that you and I and everyone, we all deserve to feel this. Feeling sexy is a positive human experience that someone should have, and it's something that we can create within our own hands. It's just a matter of our mind and how we view ourselves. And honestly, like, we all have that moment. Like, all of us have that moment with such low self-esteem where we don't feel sexy. And I know it can be hard to build self-esteem, but again, it's not impossible. It's only impossible if you say it's impossible. And I know that sounds corny, but it's all still so true. And when you start to look at the benefits of taking time to build your self-esteem and your sexy self and everything that comes with it, and working towards bettering it, the benefits certainly outweigh the disadvantages. Like, according to Google, self-esteem means confidence in one's own worth or abilities. It also encompasses our beliefs about ourselves. But that doesn't mean having a high self-esteem automatically makes you some arrogant or cocky person. And having a high self-esteem certainly doesn't mean that you only have confidence. There's a lot of things in there. But having a high self-esteem means that you are on the path of accepting who you are. Like, imagine what you would be like if you had the confidence not to pretend to be somebody you weren't. Well, that's what having high self-esteem means. It means that you're just your unapologetic, authentic self. Like, that doesn't mean you have to be a dick. But when you're more true to your authentic self, you can make better decisions for yourself that are more in line with what you want to do. And having a high self-esteem isn't just good for your mental health, but it's also good for your physical health. Because people with higher self-esteem, they're less stressed. And there's so many studies out there that shows how much damage stress can do to our bodies. Like, I know when I'm feeling good about myself and I'm feeling sexy, there's no room for stress. Like, I know that my stress levels are down. So to help you picture yourself be sexy, I found a really good article that outlines 6 steps on how to gain confidence and sex appeal by Dr. T.C. North. And I'll put the link up in the description. But the too long, didn't read it version, 6 steps, goes as followed. Step 1. Remember a time you were self-confident or feeling sexy. Step 2. Record a confident memory in a diary or journal. Step 3. Remember and record a new confident memory as you did in steps 1 and 2. Step 4, reread and re-experience your first memory until you can bring back the feeling of confidence. Step 5, repeat the first 2 steps with a new memory each day. Step 6, reread and re-experience all the confident memories you previously recorded. Now, before you think this may sound repetitive, more often than not, it's the repetition where the message actually sinks in. We have to continuously picture ourselves feeling sexy and confident in order for us to actually believe it. I couldn't just say I feel sexy one time for me to believe it. It took me saying I'm sexy over and over and over and over and over for it to sink in. I really wish we could just say that to ourselves once, like, I feel sexy, and then poof, just like that. Just like magic, we're all feeling sexy. But feeling sexy and self-confident does take some repetition. And like I said in the last episode, when I wasn't feeling good about myself or not sexy or I had low self-esteem, I was so sensitive to different types of criticism. But really, I was just sensitive in general. And I look back, I just was sensitive. I always was on the defense. And I feel it's because I wasn't confident on the inside. But once I was able to be that sexy, confident Energizer bunny for myself, I can bring that feeling back, that feeling of confidence so quickly. And sometimes I need boosters. Like, hey, I'll go out and get an extra sexy lingerie, but it doesn't need to be expensive to be sexy. Like, take my little black collar, for example. These little black necklaces, they cost basically nothing. But as soon as I put it on, I immediately just feel sexy. Everyone needs to set aside time for feeling sexy. But what do you think? What makes you feel sexy? Do you think that we even need to feel sexy? Let me know in the comments. That's it for me, but thank you for listening to me talk about why we need to feel sexy. And if it isn't too much to ask, why don't you do something tonight that makes you feel sexy? That's it for me. Thank you for listening. As always, stay kinky.